Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob, and you're watching our latest LEGO Masters build breakdown.
But before we start, let's dive into a recap of what we built this week on LEGO Masters Season 4. Welcome to our masterpiece, Solar Serenade, Pas de Deux. Act 1, Eclipse. As the sun and moon draw closer to each other, their attraction creates a spectacular eclipse, bringing darkness to the land. The contortionists twist and bend to embody the darkening of the sky, culminating in a mesmerizing display of power and grace. Act 2, Orbit. As the sun and moon continue to revolve around each other, their dance in the sky is mirrored by the performers on stage. The aerialists twist and turn, suspended from the ceiling, while the twirling celestial bodies below spin in perfect synchronicity. Act 3, Message. The sun and moon send messages of love and longing to each other, expressed through the movements of the synchronized swimmers and the soaring melodies of the musicians. The audience is transported to a world where all communication is wordless, and the only language is that of the heart. Act 4, Spark. The culmination of the show sees the sun and moon finally unite, sparking a dazzling display of light and energy to form their own new universe in a big bang. The performers come together in a joyful celebration of love and union, gliding across the sky in a fiery display of passion and creativity that defies the laws of gravity itself. Okay, so that was our full pitch for not only our build, but also everybody else's in our group's build for the Cirque du Soleil Team Challenge. Do you want to explain to them what our particular build focused on?
Yeah, so our particular build focused on the flying act.
That was right, yeah.
And so, we had to basically make a bunch of Cirque du Soleil. I think we settled on mini-land scale, but...
Mini-land scale, yeah.
Cirque du Soleil figures that were in the appearance of flying in the air.
Yeah.
And then, of course, all the other team members, the other three teams, had to do their own act. Yeah.
Yeah, so with this challenge, this was a really cool one because we actually got to work in teams. That was a killer team that we had. But what we had to do, which was different than all of the other LEGO Masters episode builds for this one, was to come up with the idea and plan for not just ourselves, but to make sure that it would look good as a cohesive build for all of us, and a cohesive build across basically 4 different modules.
Yeah.
So this was a challenge.
This was a really big challenge because, it's, working between the two of us, it's pretty okay. It's easy to manage, we know our work dynamic, but then you throw 6 other people into the mix, and it suddenly becomes really interesting. They're all super talented builders. I don't know how they drew things from the hat, but it just so happens that everyone in the team that we were on had
won or been in top 2.
Exactly. And so we're like, interesting. This is gonna be interesting.
Yes.
But we had to really figure out, okay, how are we gonna coordinate such that, everything we're building has a same theme, has a story, has, a unified color scheme that the judges like, and just coordinate that while also fitting the build within the set period of time.
We basically assembly lined it and we said, you know what we're gonna do is everybody helps each other, which I really liked. Like, we were super collaborative, actually, where we essentially started off the first half of the build, everybody was working on something for somebody else, I think, for the very first beginning. So, for instance, I was working on the mechanism, specifically Sam and Nina's, but I was really trying to get the gearing mechanisms to work on that. Sam and Nina were working on the archways for everybody's build, making essentially the same exact archway to be used for all 4 of the team's builds. And then Lewis and Alex were trying to work on kind of the border, I think. It was kind of like we had the circular border, as well as helping Ben and Poppy with the figures. So everybody was kind of doing their own thing. But also doing something that would benefit and actually be building for the other teams, which was really cool. I mean, it's pretty rare in a reality TV show competition that 8 competitors come together and help each other. I like that. That was awesome. Really nice.
Yeah. I thought that our team coordinated so well. I think Sam really took the lead in the beginning and
Oh,
kind of whipped us all into shape.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
He stuck a bunch of bricks together and showed everyone, was like, this is the color scheme we're going to use.
Yep.
Look at
like,
it. And
all right, mate, that looks good.
sir,
Yeah. Let him cook. Let him cook.
do it. Yeah. You know, Sam has just been killing it so far in the season. So, you know, it was an amazing episode, I thought. I think for our build specifically, we obviously had a bunch of different challenges.
I have a lot to say about our mechanism. I'm curious because I'm sure you have a lot to say as well. So like, let's hear, because we really parallelized our builds. I don't think we worked on the same thing at all. Like,
yes, very rarely.
Like we just did our own thing and then came together at the last like hour. Because I don't even remember talking to you during this episode at all.
It was very rare. Yeah, we were doing our own thing.
Which is rare because usually we're like collaborating, but this one was a bit different because I was like helping other people.
Exactly.
And, so what were you? What were you working on? Like I don't even remember. Like I know the big spheres, but other than that,
I think that. Originally, our idea was really to have this orrery where basically it's almost like a planetarium where you have a central spinning planet, and then surrounding that planet was, you know, another planet that was rotating, and then also spinning around the central planet. And so we wanted to have, like, the entire theme of our build was really the sun and the moon. So we were thinking, perhaps scientifically inaccurately, that we'd have a rotating sun and a moon that was rotating while also orbiting the sun.
Yeah.
And that was basically the fundamental idea.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning, we scaled up the spheres. So I built out a moon sphere.
Why did we... I'm trying to remember why we even made spheres.
Yeah, so I mean, the original plan...
Because we had something different, right?
We ended up with something somewhat less ambitious.
Well, we kept switching up and down, up and down, up and down. We were like, it's not possible to mount it. We go down, go up, go down. I can talk about that part with the mechanism, but with the initial idea, do you remember?
The initial idea, I mean, we ultimately ended up with 2 spheres that were just rotating in place.
Yeah.
And then an orrery with the 2 mini-land figures suspended from the ceiling and rotating around.
Yes, well, that's what we ended up with.
That's what we ended up with. But the original idea was, instead of just having the mini-land figures rotating around on the ceiling, we would have basically a sun rotating in the middle, a large moon rotating and orbiting the sun on the side, and then we would have a dual orrery on top with the sun and the moon figures mirroring the movements of the planets.
That's
on
right.
the bottom.
That was the initial idea.
And we ran into many problems right off the bat.
Yeah.
We originally scaled up the sun to be quite large. I think, you know, just building a sphere. I was building.
You initially had it like this. It was like
I don't think it was that.
Like
big.
it was like this. Like maybe like.
I mean, the sun ended up being about this big. So basically, we had a 16 by 16 base plate, and we just had a snot sphere. But so that was fine, and like we stuck it in, and it rotated fine. And then I scaled out the moon, and I built a much smaller moon. I think it was maybe like 6 to 8.
Something like that.
So
it was like a little,
pretty
small.
Little
moon. Yeah.
But even building that kind of a snot sphere, having that stuck in and then connect to the sun and rotating around the sun.
It's too heavy.
Very heavy. The motors that we had didn't have enough torque to actually spin that thing around. We tried to gear it down. We tried a ton of stuff. We tried to put a wheel under the
Oh my
moon.
god, we did. Yeah.
And
it worked for like a little bit.
It worked for a little bit, but it was extremely
sus,
sus, and the motor gave out. So ultimately, we're like, crap, like these things are too big.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're big. They're nice, big technical spheres, so that's cool. And we don't want to just remove them. So I think we ultimately just scrapped the orrery in the bottom and just like implanted the spheres rotating, which is kind of disappointing, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you were working on the...
I was working on Sam and Nina's function for a lot of it.
Yeah.
But so right now, the way that we had it was that we had one sphere rotating in place, and then we had a bar going out that was spinning around it, and then on the tip of that bar, we had another sphere or another object that was rotating, kind of circling around it. And that was the orrery.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge for us was that, like, even if you look at like JK Brickworks or all the Lego orreries online, they're all like desk toys, you know, like they're standing on a desk.
Yeah.
But we wanted to suspend it from midair, which I'm pretty sure if you took like, I mean, maybe if you took his and held it upside down, it'd be fine. I believe that. But if you took ours and held it upside down, there were a lot of problems because the weight of having a bar stick out of the side and have another thing on the end of that bar was causing the whole gear mechanism, which was a very intricate gear mechanism that I spent a lot of time trying to optimize. It would just rip itself apart. It was not strong enough. I even tried like using brackets to use studs on the side pieces, but then the heavier I made it, the harder it would have been to actually suspend the entire thing from midair. And I remember that for the longest time you were telling me we should just scrap the dangling in midair entirely and just put it on the ground. For at least like there was a couple hour segment where you were like, this isn't working, dude. Like, I don't know if we're gonna get this working. I think so.
So I think what that was basically, I think at this point I wasn't quite sure, because I don't think we ever had the idea of suspending the planets in the air, because I don't think we're so dumb that we would think that we can suspend a sun this big in midair and then a moon. But I think the original idea was that we'd have the orrery on the ground, and then we'd have figures also mirroring the orrery on top doing the same thing.
Just getting the figures to suspend from midair and move was nearly impossible for me. I spent, I think, half our time just getting that to work.
I think so. I was like, okay, if we can get the planets to spin on the ground, I was like, okay, forget attaching the orrery on the ceiling. We'll just
stick the orrery on the ground.
Like, basically have two large, Technic rods going up, and then just have the mini land figures flying.
Oh,
actually on the ground.
That is right. That's your idea, right?
But that obviously wouldn't work because once we figured out that the ground orrery itself wouldn't work either because the planets were so heavy.
We had to mount it.
Okay, then we had to mount it on the ceiling.
So the tricky part I remember for me was once I got it mounted on the ceiling, the speed of the gear was way too fast and the figures were like flying off.
Oh yeah.
So I had to somehow come up with a way to significantly gear it down in midair on a strut that didn't like look super ugly. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure that out. So I think most of this build for me was not aesthetics at all. And it was purely just like technical gear mechanisms, which was personally a challenge for me. I didn't really grow up building Lego Technic sets. I collect all the Lego Technic sets now, but I only really started collecting Technic in fairly recent years. So I'm by no means a Technic expert. So it took me a disproportionately large amount of time just to get the gearing to actually work out there. And get the gears to function in the way that we wanted to, hanging upside down. So the entire thing was upside down and geared down. So that was a challenge. And then I think in the final hour or 2 hours, it was a mad dash to make it not look bad. Because we had a really ugly black Technic structure that was not decorated at all. That was just kind of a frame. The floor. We didn't have a floor. Like, we just had like a hollow floor. And we were like, we have 2 hours left. What do we do?
So I think, definitely. So I think the black strut was something that we tried to cover up.
I covered it up.
Okay, yeah, you did cover it up. I think one of the big things that actually helped our build a lot was the floor. Because... So
you can talk about...
So I spent a lot of time, obviously with the two planets rotating, we had to stick a motor in, we had to stick a spike prime in there. So there's some wiring under the floor, and we had to cover it all up and make it a stage. Kind of like a Cirque du Soleil stage. It's a very large floor. I think it was something like around 100 by 100 studs. And it was also circular. And so we had to spend some time to basically just cover all that stuff up and hide it. Just building the supports and building it up, like hiding that spike prime, like having it like a little hinge that can like open it and you can turn it on. But then I think the big make or break difference there was we added a very nice studs on the side, multicolored floor at the end. That was like blue, white, some transparent pieces. And it looked, in my opinion, gorgeous.
It looked really cool.
And like that just tiled the entire bottom, and I was like, okay, that's it.
Well, the idea behind that was that, okay, Jamie and Amy came over and talked to us as a group. And they were noticing we were using a lot of dark blues and blacks, and they were like, okay, but when we think of space, we don't think of like just black sky stars. We think of colorful, like nebulas, and all sorts of like interesting things that you could see that are different colors in space. And that gave us the idea that, okay, why don't we make a multicolored floor that actually has this nebula pattern on the floor that really makes it feel like it kind of gave some depth to the build.
Yeah.
Like the planets aren't just on the floor, they're kind of swirling in this nebula.
Right.
And that was what was really important. And I think really that last hour of making the floor, I think both of us were doing the floor at the same time.
Yeah.
Just stacking different colored bricks, like 1x16, like light blue, medium azure, teal, white, all sorts of different colored bricks, like some dark blue, but just in this gorgeous like nebula pattern, almost randomly colored.
Yeah.
Like we wanted to feel like a multicolored, like random nebula. That tied it all together.
Yeah.
And overall, I mean, if you look at the build and how it, I think, at our team build, I think visually the cohesion is really strong. Like I'm really happy with that overall build from everybody did a really good job.
I think the coordination that our team had, that like you and like Sam, just working on having that unified color palette and having that unified stage.
Yeah.
With the stage border, with those very consistent arches.
Yeah.
With the color scheme. It made the build really, really cohesive. And the judges commented on that. They really liked our cohesion. And that, I think that really paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I also wanted to talk about was that building the sun and moon figure, it was actually my job.
Yes.
We essentially didn't have our sun and moon characters, so I was like, okay, I can probably whip it together. And so I think maybe I overcooked a little bit because I made them really intricately detailed. Specifically the sun character, I noticed that there was a bin full of minifigure accessories in the brick pit, and there were a couple of crabs. There were a couple of Keat Orange, or as Bionicle fans would know, Keat Orange or Flame Yellowish Orange crabs. And I was like, oh, those are like kind of cool shoulder pads for our guy to wear. What I was doing was whipping together the figures. I think I made the template figures and I had Lewis and Alex copy them, but somehow we were like one figure short. And at a certain point, Ben needed the sun figure and there were 5 minutes left. And he comes to me and he's like, dude, I don't have a figure yet. I was like, what? Because we needed, like, it was essential to have the sun and moon figure in the build. We had 5 minutes left, and I was hauling, like, I was sprinting, I was, like, whipping the sun figure together, and Ben had the genius idea of, he was like, okay, we're having a synchronized swimmer display, so let's have the sun be in the water, and we don't even need to build the legs. He was like, we'll have his torso emerging from the water. So I was like, okay, done. Easy. So I was whipping it together. Literally, the clock was counting down. I was trying to build this mini-line figure, and all the parts were separate. Like, mixel joints are here, and plates are over here, and then the crabs are, like, God knows where. 10 seconds left. I, like, slammed it down into his build randomly. I was like, all right, it's done, and then time was up. So I don't think I was even there. You guys were all assembling it. You guys were combining the builds. I didn't even help, because I was building the guy.
Yeah.
We made it happen, sort of. It was like half a figure with no crabs. I don't think he had a nose either. I didn't have time to find the cheese slopes. But it was the figure. You know, you got him. I said put his back to the wall so you don't see that he doesn't have a nose. And I think that was the most like high speed, high stress moment of the show so far for me.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I saw you running around and I was like, God damn, dude, go. Like,
I don't think I even told you what I was doing.
No, yeah. Like
he had no idea what I was doing. Yeah. He just saw me like sprinting back and forth. And it's like
I saw you building figures, but I just let you do your thing. You seem to be cooking, so yeah. Yeah, I think ultimately this build, you know, obviously no one got eliminated in this challenge, which is amazing. I think it wouldn't necessarily even be fair if anyone got eliminated because, like, how do you judge that? Like, maybe one team helped another team a lot, and then, you know, to the detriment of their own.
Like, Sam and Nina spent half their time helping everyone else.
Exactly.
So, like, yeah, like, I mean, theirs is not going to be as big or impressive as their other builds, but they built the structure for everyone. So,
but... You know, ultimately, I think our build went okay. I think, honestly, like, I did not think our build was as great as our other things. Like, there were,
well, I think everyone feels the same way. Yeah. I think it's definitely, this was, like, a cool team effort. Yeah, if we spent 10 hours making an individual Cirque du Soleil display, it would have been a lot better, but it's cool that we had the teamwork effort. Personally, I am proud most of the mechanical functions in this build, specifically the orrery dangling from the ceiling.
Yeah.
and like nothing. Like the rest of it is just like, all right, it's okay.
Yeah, the
but
rest is,
the mechanical function of just getting the orrery to hang upside down, I'm like, oh, figuring that out was very nice.
It was probably the most complicated mechanical function you've done so far in the challenge. We had big ambitions for this one, I think, but physics and time just weren't really on our side. And I think getting the cohesion between the different teams was more important than like having an individually amazing build. So yeah.
And that sums up this week's LEGO Masters build breakdown. I hope you enjoyed our video.
Be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. And of course, thank you all so much for watching us on LEGO Masters Season 4. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.